Hello and welcome to God's Minute. I'm Pastor Jonathan Conrad and I'm the senior pastor at St. Paul's Lutheran Church in Wilmington, North Carolina. Today we continue our look at Paul's letter to the Galatians. This time we pay attention to chapter 2, where we get a very interesting confrontation between two alpha apostles. So let's get to it. Then after 14 years, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas, taking Titus along with me. I went up in response to a revelation. Then I laid before them, though only in a private meeting with the acknowledged leaders, the gospel that I proclaim among the Gentiles, in order to make sure that I was not running or had not run in vain. On the contrary, when they saw that I had been entrusted with the gospel for the uncircumcised, just as Peter had been entrusted with the gospel for the circumcised, for he who worked through Peter, making him an apostle to the circumcised, also worked through me in sending me to the Gentiles. And when James and Cephas and John, who were acknowledged pillars, recognized the grace that had been given to me, they gave to Barnabas and me the right hand of fellowship, agreeing that we should go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised. They asked only one thing, that we remember the poor, which was actually what I was eager to do. But when Cephas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face, because he stood self-condemned. For until certain people came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. But after they came, he drew back and kept himself separate for fear of the circumcision faction. And the other Jews joined him in this hypocrisy, so that even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. But when I saw that they were not acting consistently with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas before them all, if you, though a Jew, live like a Gentile and not like a Jew, how can you compel the Gentiles to live like Jews? I do not nullify the grace of God, for if justification comes through the law, then Christ died for nothing. Tell you what, that last verse still gets to me this day. So Paul arrives in Jerusalem to get the official blessing or nod of approval from James and John and Peter, or in this letter, he is called Cephas. These are the pillars, the leaders of the still young and growing Jesus movement. And they give it to him. They give him the right hand of fellowship, which is making it official, apostle approved, if you will. Now, Paul was worried that there would be an issue over circumcision, but Paul makes clear that he is preaching and reaching the Gentiles while Peter is reaching the Jews. And then Peter and Paul get into it. Paul lets him have it. Here is what Paul is doing. He is calling out Peter for his flip-flopping. Peter was all good with eating and speaking to the Gentiles, but when his Jewish constituency gets wind of it, Peter retreats. He goes the opposite way and doesn't want to have anything to do with the Gentiles. And Paul says, hey, you live like a Gentile, so how can you force them to become like the Jews? Doesn't this feel like an election speech or something you would see in a debate, something we would see on social media, the whole whataboutisms that politicians and certainly the talking heads on the news channels tell us, both liberal and conservative, like to use? We want and beg for consistency for the people we trust to protect us and lead us. Paul wants consistency from Peter and the other apostles to continue to work for Jesus and not the constituency. In our world right now, on our Christian side of the street, many still favor law above love. But if it comes down to the law being greater than the gospel, then it was useless for Jesus Christ to die. Now, Paul is not perfect. There are times that Paul also goes against what he is preaching in this letter, but his message today should still be heard and adhered. Let your life reflect the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that gospel is all about justification, being deemed righteous by God through the work of Jesus Christ and not by the law. That will do it for me today. Thank you for listening, and I will see you tomorrow for another edition of God's Minute. You take care, and God bless.